There will be moments in your life when the room is empty, the phone is silent, and the people you thought would stand beside you quietly disappear into the background. And in those moments you will be tempted to believe that your progress depends on their presence. But it never has. Your path was always yours alone. Every great transformation begins with a season of isolation, where the only voice you have left is your own, raw, unfiltered, and ready to be heard at last. Getting ahead when no one is there for you is not a punishment. It is an initiation. Life strips away the noise so you can finally feel the depth of your own power. When no one claps for you, you learn to move without applause. When no one guides you, you learn to navigate by instinct. When no one shows up, you discover that self-respect is the most reliable companion you will ever have. Loneliness isn't a wall, it's a mirror. It forces you to look at the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the fears you inherited, the wounds you carry, the potential you've been too afraid to claim. If you stay with yourself long enough, you begin to see that what you thought was abandonment was actually space. Space for your rebirth, your clarity, your awakening. You get ahead by realizing that waiting for support is another form of procrastination. The world does not owe you encouragement. But the moment you choose to back yourself, the universe rearranges around that decision. People begin to notice, opportunities begin to surface, your energy becomes undeniable, and the world responds not to your need but to your certainty. And here is the truth most people avoid. You don't need a crowd to validate you. You don't need a partner to save you. You don't need a mentor to approve you. You need commitment. You need discipline. You need the courage to walk forward long before the results show up, long before anyone believes in you, long before anyone sees what you see. Your life shifts the moment you stop waiting for someone to choose you, the moment you decide, I will choose myself, because the person who gets ahead is not the most gifted or the most supported. It's the one who refuses to stop, the one who keeps rising, the one who keeps building even when no one is watching. One day, the same people who overlooked you will wonder how you did it, and you will smile because they will never understand. You didn't need them. You needed you. Isolation is an initiation, not abandonment. It is the silent threshold every individual crosses before they step into a deeper, more authentic version of themselves. When people disappear, when the noise fades, and when life becomes unbearably quiet, the mind immediately assumes something has gone wrong. You think you've been left behind, forgotten, or rejected. But isolation is not life pushing you away. It is life pulling you inward. It is the space required for transformation, a sacred pause where your old self begins to dissolve so something stronger can emerge. In isolation, the masks you once wore have no purpose. There is no audience to impress, no expectations to fulfill, no pressure to perform. You are confronted with the raw truth of who you are when no one is watching. This confrontation is uncomfortable, sometimes painful, because it exposes the fears you suppress and the insecurities you hide beneath busyness and distractions. Yet this discomfort is the doorway. It forces you to face the unedited parts of yourself, the ones you've avoided for years, and only through this honest encounter can real growth begin. The solitude sharpens you. It teaches you to sit with your own thoughts instead of drowning them in noise. It teaches you to listen, to intuition rather than opinions. It teaches you to move without encouragement, to trust yourself without needing validation, and to create without waiting for permission. This internal strengthening can only happen when the external world steps aside. That withdrawal of support isn't a sign of abandonment. It's a sign that you are ready for the chapter that demands independence, self-trust, and inner authority. Isolation also reveals who you truly are when you are left with nothing but yourself. You learn your limits, your resilience, your desires, your shadows, and your potential. You discover that you are far more capable than you believed. You realize you can endure more than you imagined. And you understand that the strength you were searching for in others was inside you the entire time. There comes a moment in every person's journey where they must walk alone, not because the world has turned its back on them, but because solitude is the only environment intense enough to ignite a rebirth. Isolation does not diminish you. It prepares you, it purifies your intentions, elevates your self-awareness, and builds the kind of inner foundation that no external force can shake. Self-belief is more important than external validation because nothing in your life can move until you decide you are worthy of the life you're trying to build. You can gather praise, approval, applause, and reassurance from the world, but none of it has any real power if you don't believe in yourself first. External validation is fragile. It shifts with people's moods, biases, and circumstances. One day they support you, the next day they doubt you. One moment they cheer for you, the next they forget you exist. But self-belief is something no one can take away from you. It becomes an internal engine that keeps you moving long after others lose interest or fail to understand your vision. When you depend on others to feel valuable, you give away your power. You start shaping your decisions around what they might approve of, instead of what actually aligns with your purpose. You hold back your ideas waiting for permission. You shrink your dreams out of fear that someone might disapprove. Living for validation makes you a prisoner of people's opinions, and their opinions were never meant to become the steering wheel of your life. Real growth begins the moment you stop looking outward for affirmation and begin looking inward for certainty. Self-belief allows you to start before you feel ready. It allows you to take action without needing confirmation that you're on the right path. It gives you resilience when setbacks come, because you know your identity isn't tied to someone else's judgment. You learn to separate your worth from your results, your failures, and the temporary noise around you. You begin to trust your own voice, the one that has been whispering direction while the world's louder voices drowned it out. People often wait for validation because they fear being wrong, misunderstood, or judged. But the truth is, every person who has ever done something meaningful had to believe in themselves long before anyone else did. The belief came first, the support came later. Self-belief is what makes you consistent, disciplined, and courageous enough to continue even when no one sees the potential you see. External validation can inspire you for a moment, but self-belief can sustain you for a lifetime. It is the foundation for confidence, the catalyst for action, and the anchor that keeps you grounded when everything around you becomes uncertain. When you trust yourself deeply, you no longer need the world's approval to move forward. You become unstoppable simply because you finally decided you were enough. Loneliness reveals the parts of yourself you've avoided because it strips away every distraction you've used to outrun your inner truth. When the world goes quiet and the people who once filled your time fade into the background, you're left face to face with emotions, memories, and versions of yourself you've managed to bury under noise. In silence, there is nowhere to hide. The unresolved pain you've been suppressing resurfaces. The fears you've ignored begin to whisper louder. The insecurities you've masked with busyness finally demand to be acknowledged. Loneliness becomes a mirror, one that doesn't flatter you, doesn't filter you, doesn't protect you from seeing who you really are beneath all your coping mechanisms. Most people fear loneliness not because they don't want to be alone, but because they don't want to confront what being alone brings up. It exposes your dependencies, the people you relied on for validation, the routines that kept you distracted, the illusions you created to feel safe. It shows you where you've abandoned yourself in favor of pleasing others. It reveals the dreams you've postponed because you didn't think you were ready. And it highlights the emotional wounds you never healed because life kept giving you temporary ways to avoid them. But within that exposure lies a profound opportunity. Loneliness forces you to listen to the quiet parts of yourself, the intuition you ignored, the desires you suppressed, the boundaries you never set. It makes you aware of your patterns, your cycles, your tendencies to self-sabotage or to settle for less than you deserve. Without the world's noise, your inner voice becomes louder, clearer, more honest. You start to see what needs to be released and what needs to be rebuilt. You begin understanding why certain relationships drained you, why certain choices kept repeating, and why certain dreams kept calling you back no matter how long you tried to ignore them. The Discomfort of loneliness is actually a form of purification. It cleans out the emotional clutter you've avoided dealing with. It teaches you to take responsibility for your healing, your growth, your direction. It makes you stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. And as painful as it feels in the moment, loneliness gives you access to a deeper truth. You cannot hide from yourself forever. The parts you've avoided are the parts you most need to meet, because they hold the key to your transformation, your freedom, and your next chapter. Waiting for support is another form of procrastination because it keeps you suspended in a mindset where progress is always dependent on someone else's timing, encouragement, or approval. When you convince yourself that you need someone to guide you, motivate you, or validate your decisions before you can move forward, you create an endless delay disguised as preparation. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, but the truth is, you're postponing your own growth out of fear. Fear of failure, fear of responsibility, fear of stepping into your potential without a safety net. Support becomes an excuse, a shield you hide behind to avoid the discomfort of acting independently. Most people don't realize how often they use the absence of support as justification to stay stagnant. They say, "I would start if someone believed in me," or "I'll take the next step when I find the right mentor," or "I can't begin until someone helps me." But beneath those statements is the unspoken belief that they aren't capable on their own. This mindset keeps them trapped, waiting for someone else to give them permission to live their own life. And the longer they wait, the more distant their goals become. True momentum begins when you stop expecting someone to show up for you. When you stop assuming that the world owes you encouragement. When you imagining that progress will feel easier once support arrives. Taking action without support is what builds resilience, self-trust, and inner authority. Every step you take alone strengthens your belief in your own capability. And ironically, once you start moving without assistance, the support you once waited for begins to appear, not because you needed it, but because people are drawn to those who already believe in themselves. Waiting for support is also a way of delaying accountability. As long as you're waiting, you don't have to face the possibility of failure. You don't have to confront your insecurities or challenge your comfort zone. You can remain safely in planning mode, telling yourself you're preparing for the breakthrough that will happen one day. But progress doesn't come from waiting, it comes from willingness. It comes from acting with imperfect courage, from taking steps even when the path is unclear, and from choosing movement over hesitation. Your life changes the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you, the moment you accept that support is helpful but never required. Once you stop waiting, you stop procrastinating. And once you stop procrastinating, you finally begin. Discipline and commitment outweigh talent or resources because consistent action has a compounding power that raw ability can never replace. Talent may give someone a head start, and resources may open doors, but neither can sustain progress without the daily choice to show up, work, improve, and endure. Discipline is the great equalizer. It turns average people into experts and dreamers into achievers. Commitment keeps you anchored when motivation fades, when challenges appear, and when the path becomes longer and harder than you expected. These qualities transform effort into mastery and intention into results. People often overestimate the value of talent and underestimate the force of discipline. They assume successful individuals were naturally gifted or had access to advantages from the start. But behind every overnight success is a long trail of consistency, sacrifice, repetition, and persistence. Talent might help you in the beginning, but without commitment, it quickly fades. Discipline ensures that you continue to improve even when progress feels invisible. It is the silent grind, the ability to do what needs to be done even when your emotions don't cooperate. It's waking up early, practicing longer, learning deeper, and staying focused when others get distracted. Commitment is what sustains you when your initial enthusiasm dies out. Anyone can be dedicated when the goal is exciting and the process feels new, but commitment is measured in the moments when progress slows, when setbacks hit, when doubt creeps in. It is the refusal to quit even when quitting seems easier. It's the decision to return to your path again and again, not because it's easy, but because you've chosen it. Resources can provide opportunities, but without commitment, those opportunities slip away. There are countless stories of people with extraordinary talent who never reached their potential simply because they lacked the discipline to develop it. And there are just as many stories of ordinary individuals who exceeded every expectation because they were willing to put in the work consistently over time. Discipline turns potential into performance. Commitment turns dreams into reality. The world rewards those who persist. It bends in favor of those who choose consistency over comfort. Talent is a gift, and resources are advantages, but neither guarantee success. What matters most is the willingness to take small steps every day, to keep going when others stop, and to trust that long-term dedication will always outweigh short-term motivation. Discipline builds what talent alone cannot sustain, and commitment turns even the smallest spark into a fire powerful enough to change your entire life. Choosing yourself is the turning point because it marks the moment you stop negotiating your worth with the world and finally take ownership of your life. For years you may have waited for someone to choose you, someone to validate your dreams, recognize your effort, or give you permission to move forward. But the real breakthrough happens when you realize that no one else is responsible for your destiny. The moment you choose yourself, you reclaim the power you once gave away. You stop asking for approval and start acting from a place of inner authority. That shift, subtle yet profound, becomes the foundation of every transformation that follows. When you choose yourself, you stop abandoning your own needs to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop silencing your voice to avoid judgment. You begin to see that self-respect is not selfish. It is essential. You start protecting your energy, honoring your boundaries, and standing up for your truth, even when it's inconvenient. The world responds differently to a person who finally realizes they are worthy of their own devotion. Doors open, opportunities appear, and people treat you with the level of respect that you demonstrate toward yourself. Choosing yourself also means taking responsibility for your healing, your growth, and your direction. It means no longer blaming circumstances, people, or the past for where you are. Instead, you look inward and acknowledge the power you have to rewrite your story. This is liberating but also intimidating, because once you choose yourself, you can no longer hide behind excuses. You become accountable for the life you create. But with that accountability comes freedom. The freedom to choose differently, to walk away, to start over, to build something entirely new. And perhaps the most transformative part is that choosing yourself changes your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing it as proof that you're not good enough, you view it as part of the process, a necessary step toward growth. You stop fearing mistakes because you're no longer performing for others, you're evolving for yourself. That mindset turns fear into fuel and insecurity into insight. The turning point in anyone's journey is the moment they stop waiting to be chosen and decide to choose themselves, because once you do, you stop living for approval and start living for purpose. You stop surviving and start creating, and from that moment on, your life begins to move in the direction it was always meant to go, driven not by external validation, but by your own unwavering belief that you deserve more. And so, if there is one truth you carry with you after this moment, let it be this: you are not behind, you are not forgotten, and you are not alone. You are being shaped. Every season of isolation, every moment of doubt, every step you took without applause has been preparing you for a life built on strength, clarity, and self-trust. You have walked through the silence, faced your shadows, and learned to stand without support. That is not weakness. That is evolution. Your journey is not defined by who showed up for you. It's defined by the courage you found when no one did. Discipline became your compass. Self-belief became your armor. Loneliness became your teacher. And choosing yourself became the moment everything shifted. Now you stand at the edge of a new chapter. One you will enter not because someone opened the door for you, but because you finally realized you could open it yourself. Remember this: when you bet on your own potential, life eventually bets on you. When you move with conviction, the world adjusts. When you stop waiting, everything accelerates. So walk forward with your head high, not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer afraid of the journey. You've already survived the hardest parts, your doubts, your fears, your solitude. What lies ahead is the reward for every silent battle you've won. This is your moment. Choose yourself, back yourself, and watch how the world transforms around the person you are finally becoming.